Clay Christensen is here. He is a professor of business at the Harvard Business School. His work in the field of innovation has had a huge impact on how companies stay competitive. Today, he is applying those same theories to healthcare and education. He's also a teacher who has led his students to ask questions about how they conduct their lives as well as their careers. He wrote an article in the July-August issue of the Harvard Business Review called, "How Will You Measure Your Life?" I am pleased to have Clay Christensen back on this program with me here in Boston. Welcome.
Thanks, Charlie. Great to be here.
So you wrote this piece called, "How Will You Measure Your Life?" Just for a moment, you have been living with cancer. On top of that, you suffered a stroke.
Yeah.
Just tell me about it.
You know, Charlie, it has been both an extraordinary experience and a wonderful experience. And in ways that I never imagined before, as I've been treated for these diseases, I just can imagine tens of thousands of people who have given their lives to understand how the world works and how God put everything together. Every one of them dedicated to move just some little piece of the system together. And I can think of them as in a funnel, and all of that energy just funnels down to poor little old Clay Christensen. The benefit of all of those wonderful people who dedicated their lives to help me. And in the same way, people who cared me enough to pray for me that I might respond to this. And so even though it's been hard to just think about in our world how in ways that aren't clear at the beginning, we're all helping each other is something that I just never had thought about before.
But you also thought about how you measure your life.
Yeah. I've seen big people and small people, and I've been on the small side of things. But one day my stroke causes me to make sometimes the words just don't come out, but they passed me over for an important new assignment. And I just wondered, if I don't get that, what will I be? How will God measure my life at the end? And then I got an idiot simple insight. And that is that you and I, because we have limited capabilities, if we tried to understand what's going on, we have to count things. And so a corporation CEO is in a bigger position than a lower level CEO. And the bigger we preside over bigger things, the more important our life is. And that's the way we think. But God doesn't have to integrate above the level of individual people in order to have a perfect understanding of how the world works. And what that means is that when I come to the end of my life and I have my interview with him, he's not going to worry about what positions I had, but rather he's going to say, "Clay, let's talk about this situation that I put you in. Can you talk to me about the individual people whose lives you blessed by the talent that I gave you? And then I put you in that situation. Let's talk about what you did in that situation to help individual people be better because of what I gave to you." And because God measures only at the level of the individual, the way he will measure my life is the extent to which I bless individual people with my love and what God gave to me. And that's how I came up with the idea of the article that how will we measure your life?
And did you write this hoping that we would come to that conclusion before we reach the end?
That's right. To know why we're here. And
why we're here.
That's right. Is just of critical importance to guide our life. I talk about this with my students every semester, one-on-one as a whole group. And so many of the very best people are going out to sea in a boat with has no rudder. And as the storms come in their lives, if you don't have a sense for why you're here and where you're going and how you manage the ship, it's a very difficult life that they're embarked on.
You have the capacity to challenge the students and have the students challenge ideas.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Just a technique of teaching?
If you think of your students as research assistants, as opposed to you're being the teacher and they're being the student, you can learn so much from each other.
Yeah.
And so the way we organize our class is there are two pieces. One is I ask them to prepare in advance a theory about some dimension of management. And every manager is a consumer of theories, because anytime you do something, you're using a theory that says, if I do this, this will be the result. And so we have them read its theory, then we ask them to read a case and put the theory like a set of lenses and examine this case to figure out, why did this company get into this situation and what action does the management take to solve the problem?
Right.
Then I ask the student, but you also need to come to class having prepared to show Clay Christensen what's wrong with his theory.
Yes.
And as I try to engage them, not just to tell me what it does, but what it doesn't do, I walk out thinking, holy cow, I can't believe they paid me to learn from my students.
Exactly. There's also this, you have given commencement speeches on the idea of the question.
Yes.
What's the theory?
Well, I'm not the first one to think of this, but man, if you don't ask the right question, you will never get the right answer. And yet so many of our teachers have decided that the way we perform is by telling them what the questions are and then getting and measure them by their ability to give the answer. And if they don't know to define the question, they will never get the answer. And it happens at the national level. Presidents of this nation never think about, is this the right question? And we just assume the question so that we can get to the answer and take us into horrible opportunities that we never would have imagined going into had we done that. And all the way down to our engineering classes.
Yeah, and Einstein said that getting to the right answer, 95% of it is asking the right question.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a White House fellow earlier in my career, and for some reason they gave us an opportunity to meet with Richard Nixon for 4 hours. And we decided that 10 years earlier he had opened relations with China.
Right.
We asked him, why did you do that? Because it was very counter to what most of America believed needed to be done at the time. And Nixon said, from my study of foreign affairs, what I realized is that every time America had tried to isolate a totalitarian regime, isolation caused them to become stronger because it gave them the opportunity to control what people could know and to blame America for everything that was wrong. But
so they can say to their people, the reason you're suffering is not because we're inept, but because of America.
That's exactly right. And every time that we had opened up our interaction with them, first for diplomacy and then ultimately to commercial interaction, always the totalitarian government collapsed. And he said, we'd been isolating China since 1959. Mao had just become stronger and stronger, and we just needed to weaken him.
Yeah.
And you look what happened. We got rid of our most powerful foe without killing a person by interacting with them. And you look at where America continues to try to isolate people. It's North Korea, Cuba, Myanmar, Iran. And we just do it over and over again. And the current, both the Bush and the Obama administrations are thinking that if we just isolate Iran, somehow we'll make them be weak. And they don't ask the right questions.
The idea that you were first famous for was disruptive innovation. Mm-hmm. What was that?
We always had assumed that when an established, successful company stumbles and gets killed, it's because the managers were just incompetent. And I realized, oh my gosh, that's not true. They succeed because they do everything right. And somebody comes in and takes a piece of the market that the leader doesn't want to
serve.
Yeah. And that's what always kills them.
Right.
And
so they give, because they're so good, they give an opportunity to somebody else to come in and to build with different margins and different success rates.
That's exactly right.
So that was the disruptive idea. So now you come along and you have written The Innovator's Prescription, a disruptive solution for healthcare. What's the solution for healthcare we need?
Well, it's important to ask the question. We have these extraordinary hospitals staffed by extraordinary specialists. And do we think that healthcare will become affordable and accessible by expecting the hospitals to become cheap or the specialists to take pay cuts? It just won't happen. So what we have to do is bring technology to outpatient clinics so that we can do in that setting more and more of the things that today we had to do in a hospital. And then keep driving that technology so they can do more and more. And then bring technology to doctors' offices and patients' homes. So you can do more in those venues that previously had to be done in a clinic or a hospital. And in the same way, we need to bring technology to personal care doctors, right, so that they can do more and more of the things that today they have to refer to a specialist. And technology to nurse practitioners so that they can do more and more of what today require a doctor. So it's enabling lower cost venues of care and lower cost caregivers to be able to do more and more sophisticated things. That's the way healthcare becomes affordable and accessible, not by expecting the expensive ones to become cheap.
Great to see you.
It's great to see you, Charlie.
Thank you for coming.
God bless you.
A Harvard Business Review, this piece, How Will You Measure Your Life, by Clayton M. Christensen. From Boston at public television station WGBH. See you next time.